Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming to the City Blossoms Cooking Garden Recipes with Kids. We're really excited to be sharing this with you all. I'm sorry it had to be virtual, but here's where we find ourselves. So presenting today is going to be Emma Bowl, our School Gardens Partners Coordinator, myself, Tara McNerney, the Executive Director, and Jessica Richards Murray, our Early Growers Manager. And when Emma and Jessica get to their parts, they'll present a little bit more about themselves and their role in their programs at City Blossoms. So first, I'm just going to start with kind of a bit about painting the picture of who we are. So City Blossoms is a garden education nonprofit established in 2009 in Washington, D.C. And our mission is to foster healthy communities by developing creative, kid-driven green spaces. And we have multiple programs that provide garden programming for ages 2 through 19. And here, this photo you can see is volunteers, staff, and our high school program, which is called Mighty Greens at a Garden Workday. So what we do, so we achieve our mission through 5 programs on the ground that we consider our pathways model. And that's because really we think of it as pathways because like we said before, it's reaching children ages 2 through 19. So at every developmental stage. And the programs are of course tailored to their needs. So our 5 programs are Early Growers, our preschool and early childhood center partners, our School Garden Partners, which is with our elementary and middle school partners, the Youth Entrepreneurship Cooperative Program, which is our high school-based program in which the youth develop a garden-based micro enterprise. They develop their own business. We're not going to go too in depth on that program today. We're going to mostly focus on Early Growers and School Garden Partners, but if you have questions about that program at the end, you definitely can ask and we can provide you with more information. And same with our Community Green Spaces program. This is, these are based around these neighborhood gardens that aren't attached to any particular school or early child care center, but City Blossoms runs free drop-in open times programming at these community green spaces. And we also hold field trips for schools. And then we have our resources and trainings program in which we develop a lot of one-pagers, manuals, a cookbook, a library list, a lot of different things that we'll detail more later that are available on our website. And of course, I think, we should mention that the coronavirus, of course, and the pandemic that we find ourselves in has impacted our programs. And some of it we're able to still do in person, like our community green spaces drop-in programming, but others, we've had to find ways to connect with people virtually like this, and we're hopeful that we can be helping people who are cooking with kids at home or people who are working with other families at home and how they might be able to engage kids in cooking and gardening. So why do we cook with kids? Well, cooking is a tool for community building and positive youth development. Yes, it's great to get kids eating healthier food, and of course when they're harvesting and then cooking the kale, they're a lot more likely to want to eat it. But it also, in addition to those health benefits, does all these other positive youth development things. It brings us closer to each other. So when kids are cooking with one another, they're using teamwork. It's a shared experience. It connects us all to nature. It helps us realize that the plants that we grow and that are coming from the soil are literally nourishing our bodies, and so it makes us more connected to the earth as well. It develops fine motor skills in little ones. So when we're doing a lot of like patting and shaking and measuring, that's all developing those fine motor skills. It builds agency and confidence. So when kids realize that they harvested and they cooked something that they can eat themselves, that of course builds really their self-confidence and agency. And it acts as practical math and reading practice. So especially for the older kids, in reading a recipe or practicing division or multiplication with the quantities needed in the recipe, that all can help for math and reading practice. And this is just, this is a photo of our former co-founder, Lola Bloom, currently the director of food and wellness at DC Bilingual Public Charter School, cooking at home with her son. And she has a YouTube channel with lots of delightful videos of activities that they do. And we can post that in the chat later if you are interested in watching it more. All right, and with that, I think I'm gonna pass it over to Jessica to ask you a little bit about what brings you here today, so we can kind of get a sense of what you all are interested in. And I'm gonna unmute people because we're hoping to invite you to, yeah, to speak up and to share.
Thank you, Tara. So as Tara was saying, I'm Jessica Richards. I'm the Early Growers Manager and Educator for City Blossoms, and I've been working with kids for a number of years, but with City Blossoms for about 5 years now. And this program, the Early Growers program that I manage, is now been going and operating for 3 years now. So I've had the pleasure to develop and manage and also teach some, along with educators, some like early childhood Head Start based programming that's in the garden. So what brings you here today, I just kind of want to get a sense of like who's in the room and see if we have educators or, you know, of course, parents like myself to ask me whatever questions that, you know, you're thinking about now or kind of what you want to get out of this webinar this evening. So I'm going to mute myself and listen, or maybe Tara is operating that.
Yeah, we're a small group, so would love to hear from you guys, kind of what you're interested in and what brought you here today. Oh, I see there's this. Okay, so let's see. Cindy says, let's see, Jason Hawk, I'd like to be able to keep my 4-year-old engaged in our family garden. Her interest seems to come and go. Any tips? Okay, great question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So and that is okay, go ahead. Yes, please. I can't see any of them, so I'm like.
Oh, yeah. And Cassie says, I have a small backyard garden and work with my grandchildren, 9 and 10 years old, trying to keep them engaged and would love to learn some recipes. Great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like these are really good questions that would kind of go across the board in programming. Even with Emma here talking about, you know, the work that she does with elementary students. So as far as a 4-year-old, I can definitely answer that. I have a 4-year-old myself, and hopefully in this video, you'll be able to see how we've adapted and how we've been able to, how I've been able to keep his interest around being outdoors and just, you know, exploring new things. It's definitely made the backyard way bigger, like a whole new world. But adjusting to, living maybe, in an apartment space or a smaller type of green space, I want to be able to speak to a little bit of that too. I mean, we do have free resources that we'll be sharing later on, and hopefully you all can link to see if it supports, your unique green spaces. But as far as interest, it's just like allowing him to just be in the space itself, like, like dig deeper his own self, like really kind of have his freedom to feel around and, with a few simple things to think about, but being that if in this case that we're in it at home, I'm sure that he's familiar with his space. I will be talking, of course, we've adjusted our programming, but some of the tips will be able to help both, at home as we're adjusting and at our early childhood sites. Hopefully that may kind of cover the same. I'm thinking when we get to the tip slide, it can sort of stir up some other questions, or maybe you'll get your tips, from there, that your answers from there. But yeah, I think, yeah, Tara, we were right at the slide. We can just go right into it if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And I want to know, a lot of people kind of mentioned, Susan says, I have a community garden. My grandson is 7 years old. My granddaughter is almost 2 years old. I'd like to learn recipes I can use with them. We can definitely, I think a couple people mentioned learning recipes. So we can, at the end, we'll have a link to our resources page, where we do have our cookbook, but we also, I'd like to invite everyone to email me later, and I'll put my email in the chat. We have a bunch of recipe cards that we could mail all of you. And so if you'd all like to, if you would like that, we have like 12 different like illustrated kind of recipe cards that we do with children in the garden, and we'd be happy to mail them to this nice small group of people here later. But yes, I think you can take it away now, Jessica.
Okay, all right, so here we are. So like we were saying before, I am the educator and manager for Early Growers. And Early Growers program partners with our early childhood centers in the area, in the district, and in some Maryland sites that we are with. And basically what Early Growers is currently doing, as we've transitioned, we support currently 17 locations and sites that are early child care centers and like Head Start private sites. We basically support and serve educators like that are there. Like I co-teach with educators that are working with students or children from ages 2 to 6 years old. Basically getting them really like immersed in their environment, like explorers, seeing what's around them in their surroundings and just truly exploring their space. A lot of the programming too, but not to go too far into it, I basically go into sites and assist teachers with certain lessons, particularly around cooking or basic gardening techniques and maintenance, and also helping to build out their green unique spaces for the Healthy Tots to play in and explore. This picture right here is of myself with a few early growers, and we're actually in our City Blossoms studio garden space, where we've had the pleasure to invite a lot of our friends to our office studio to sort of get an idea of how to model a space in their, you know, their own space, how they can model something unique as what we've developed and designed in our own backyard. So you'll see the students, they have sort of station areas where they nook off. They can read books. They can also do maintenance in the garden. There's also further, not in this picture, but further off to the right or left, it's images of like students playing in like a free sort of like nature play space, like an open free space. So in this slide, the tools we use with early growers are highly adaptable to home cooking projects with young chefs. So when we're in the garden, we'll typically talk about what we're going to harvest and bring it right over to the table, as you see right there, to prepare a meal together. So typically I would have already been into the classroom and we, you know, review it, and then they come and explore and have the full-on experience in our gardens or in their gardens. I think we can move to the next slide if that's. I can kind of touch base before we get into the video. Like I said before, and as Tara was saying before, we definitely adjusted to our current situation in the world around COVID, and you'll see in this video how my family and I have done the same, while also hoping, you know, to project, you know, how families can, you know, take this time and this opportunity to really teach your children, you know, how to explore their space, you know, maybe books that are connected to that. Also, you know, really dig deeper into their world around them. So before we go into the video, another thing about early growers is that we support, like I was saying before, a lot of the sites in the area around coachings, free resources, lessons and units, such as cooking or like nature play, and design in a green space, gardening, and also field trips, as we tend to coin them as excursions. So that the picture before this video is an actual excursion for one of our sites that came to visit that does not have a unique space. Tara, if you don't mind, you could click back to it really quick. Just showing them that. So that is typically an excursion, and we receive students to do, you know, that are typically like incubator schools. So they get to come to our space and explore, and also have a cooking demo if there's time for that, or if there's things to harvest at that time. So we can click in. So yeah, so that being said, I want to be able to share the video with you all, with my family, cooking a meal together. I can't hear the sound.
Oh no. Let's see. Sorry, everyone. Let me see why that's not working.
So if you press on where sound is, I think right after like skipping, and then right here where the time is, I think you can maybe get sound that way. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Clicking on the speaker.
It's playing on mine though. I think it's not. I think we're gonna have to, okay. Hold on. Let's see. Sorry everybody, bear with us for 1 second while I figure this out. Here. Can you hear it now?
So I can't even see it now. I just see.
But can you hear it?
Uh-uh.
Okay. think we should maybe move on. Let me do some quick research and see if I can figure out how to get that going. But do you want to keep going, Jessica, and then we'll come back to it?
Sure, that's fine.
Thanks.
So, I mean, even from there, I mean, it could be time to where people can ask questions at this point, because I see a lot of questions coming up too. So maybe we can prompt that and take a little time to ask questions. Sorry about the technical difficulties. But I see, let me see. I'm gonna look, excuse me. Okay, all right. So on the video though, you'll be able to see it at a different time, but you'll see us kind of walking through my home garden, harvesting kale. So we're doing a recipe, which had all sorts of tips beyond this, but hopefully you all will be able to see it on another time, or maybe we'll be able to get it up before this is over. So yeah, so the tips for harvesting and cooking with young kids. Harvesting, when we usually meet into a site, we'll do a song or, you know, like body movement that suggests, you know, things that are connected to the garden, like bugs or insects. Like the vegetables and fruit that we grow in the parts of the plant. So when we're in lessons or talking about parts of the plant, for instance, we'll, you know, do a song that is connected to that, and or a book read. And then we'll talk about how we use our body when we go into the garden for maintenance. The wiggly worm touch is basically a gentle touch to a plant that you might not be sure if you're allergic to, or, you know, just being gentle to the plant itself. So, you know, our friends like to go in and maybe pull things, and their senses are on height, you know, and we definitely encourage them to, you know, explore all of that with their senses, all of the garden with the senses. So that is a way. The pinching fingers is also a way to, you know, help support their fine motor skills. Again, being gentle when being in the garden, or maybe harvesting foods in the garden. Being mindful, again, like I said, of your body when you're in the garden, how different rules that we use before we go to do maintenance. So I'll allow the students to make up the rules themselves, you know, like simple, like it's not running, or, you know, picking things without, you know, asking, or tasting things without permission. And again, using songs and dance that direct them or prompt them to what the lesson is currently. With the cooking, friendly cooking knives you would have seen in the video, where we were using our typical tools that we bring into sites. When working with early growers sites, we tend to provide them with a care package of a cooking box where they have all the things they need to get started and to be inspired by cooking, just as you see in these beautiful images here. As a part of the cooking, I mean, we have the tools provided, but our kids also use their bodies. So they'll use their hands to break up foods that we're preparing. And what better way to break things up than having little fingers to do that when they already want to sort of pick at things already. Another technique you would have seen in the video is the rolling technique. This technique was, you would have seen an image of me, my son, and our friend Mackenzie making lemonade together, putting all the pieces together to make the lemonade, and provide the space for them to be a part of the lesson. So again, maybe that can go back to answering Grandma's question of just letting them be a part of the whole project. And, you know, trying out a new tool that they would have had a no to otherwise. But it's about allowing them yes moments in the garden, and of course, and in preparation with providing a meal that's healthy for your child and you. And this right now, as we're adjusting, this was a really great experience for me personally, being that I work with so many children and families. I now have the opportunity to be with my son, and although I have him with me and he's typically with me in gardens, and he was a bit of the brainchild around this design in our early growers studio garden. He helped me with, sort of being the guinea pig and filling out the space when our former director helped, her and I designed the space in the back and the team. And as far as like getting the ideas from the child, and the toddler themselves and what they would like to see in that space. So just having this opportunity now to be with my son, Ian, and letting him touch things, taste things, helps with bridging his taste buds and, being able to grow it, with his own hands. He'll want to know all about it all the way through. And that does encourage your child to want to learn how to make a new recipe. And again, I'm really sorry that we could not have the video. Hopefully you all will be able to link to it shortly after. Thanks.
I'm gonna try. I think I figured it out, Jessica. Sorry about that. Just bear with me really quickly. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and now I'm gonna share. Okay. All right. Can you hear that now? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Kenzie, what are we pulling today? What is this?
Kale. Call it kale.
Kale, and it's a type of what?
Food.
It is a food, but it's a leafy what?
Green.
Greens, right? Can you show me your leaves? Show me your leaves. If you were to make your body into leaves, leaves, and then this part is the stem. Show me a stem. Can you show me a stem? Do what I asked. Stem. All right. And then where's the leaves again, Ian? Leaves. We're going to also add some rosemary, which is a type of herb. Can you guys say rosemary?
Rosemary.
Rosemary. Check out those caterpillars. There are 1, 2, 3, count with me, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9
You need to get
caterpillars. First step is take the kale greens, right? And we want to break them up in teeny tiny pieces. You see how Mackenzie's doing them? In teeny tiny pieces. And taking our time because we don't want to cut. We are using kid-friendly knives, right, that are very safe for kids to use. They're not sharp, and they help our friends to cut what they want to cook. Let's show us how to cut them, Ian, the proper way. Ian and Mackenzie have now gotten all the green ingredients inside of our mortar, and we will now mix up the things that we need to finish our recipe. So any other time Miss Jessica would use chickpeas, right? But when we use chickpeas, it turns into what? Hummus. So what Mommy does have, and what Miss Jessica has, is a container of hummus that we're going to mix into it. So all the fun part, is out of it. We would typically take raw chickpeas out of a can, and we would grind them all up together. But we're going to mix a few dollops of garlic hummus into this. So the two steps that we're going to not do today is do the garlic press and the chickpea grind, okay? But we are going to add a little bit of what? Lemon to our recipe. And then we need to get crackers, and we'll serve it. Sound good? Does it sound good? Yeah. Okay, perfect. are making a
Lemonade.
an herbal lemonade. And the main ingredient is
Lemon.
what color are lemons?
Yellow.
Yellow, right? And what shape are they? Kind of
Round.
They're round,
Oval.
right? Or oval-like, right? So we have lemons.
Lemons.
What else do you see here?
Ice. Water.
Ice. Water.
And sugar.
Oh, to make it an herbal lemonade.
And
Right. Now, all right, so we have said all the ingredients that we're going to use to create our herbal lemonade. We need 20 mint leaves. Can you all pick 20 mint leaves off? Let's count it together. We are now going to squeeze the lemonade, or the lemons. Ian is over here taking the mints and breaking them up and adding them to our myrtle and pesto.
I was not finished cutting.
Okay, be gentle, please. Okay. So what we want to do when we do the lemons, we want to press all of our weight into the
And I'm going to
squeezing.
get the seeds in.
And so you want to squeeze until you get all the juice. And the lemons that we're using about 3 lemons for this, okay? So let's see if you can squeeze really as hard as you can, Mackenzie. Nope. So our next step, wait.
Is the ice.
So it's not our ice. We want to add our
This is
lemon
all-
juice.
This is all
We want to
ice
add our.
flour.
So now we want to add our water, and we're going to shake it all up.
You know. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Okay. So the method that we tend to use with our friends when making lemonade, and for us to be safe, because sometimes when they get to stirring, it might splash everywhere or spill, or we have lots of spills often with our small friends. We like to use mason jars. So you can get mason jars any hardware stores or grocery store in your area, and we'll take it so that we can make it easy for our friends to shake up all the sugar and the ice, and or roll on a safe table. Our table is glass, so we don't want to roll too much, but a wooden table would be good to gently roll and mix up all of our ingredients.
I see the green.
Can you do that for us?
rolling.
Gently, 3 times. 1, 2, 3. All right. All right, let's try our lemonade.
Not that much, Mommy. I'll put that much.
Okay, can I try some too?
Lemon tea on here.
It's yummier when it's like that. Are you ready? Can we say cheers to our friends? Go up to the
Cheers,
Say
cheers,
cheers.
family.
All right, ready? Let's dip. Mmm.
It tastes pretty limey.
So those moments. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Yeah, I went over the tip, so I know we got to share it. So I want to move on to the next slide and, share with Emma now. Emma, thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. All right, so that was a glorious video. Thanks for sharing that with us, Jessica. If y'all are ready to move on, we also included some of the tips that we like to use for cooking with older kids. I noticed in the chat that some of you are working with kids who are a little bit older. So we wanted to share what we do to kind of age these activities up. So again, I work with the School Garden Partners program, which means I work with a lot of elementary school students, little kindergartners, all the way up to the 5th graders. And we also, as Tara mentioned, work with high schoolers as an organization. And I've had a lot of fun cooking with our Mighty Green students or with high school students who come to our field trips. So these are the things that we use to make sure that the activities are still developmentally appropriate. And I know that folks also had questions about engagement. So we find some of these tips pretty useful for that as well. So as kids get older, we find it exciting to be able to hand them cookbooks and let them follow their taste and let them explore new versions of something that they already know. So one of these pictures you can see, we have a pasta salad underway here. And we like to think of pasta as a kind of bridging food. I think cheese is another good example of that, things that kids that tend to be popular with kids and also tend to be familiar with them are sometimes good tools to use as the base to get them interested in trying things that they might not ordinarily be interested in. So in this pasta, we have some kale that these kids harvested from in our garden where they're making this recipe. And they also have some carrots in there, and they also help harvest those from the garden. So we did this in fall, and they really liked it. And I think it's a nice example of letting them follow what they're interested in. So if kids are reading, letting them flip through the book. And if they know that they love chips and salsa, they might be able to find a really interesting art and salsa recipe, along with all of the other new tastes that they might find in those cookbooks. Another tool that we use for engagement, especially as the kids get older into middle and high school, is discussing the bigger picture. So I really enjoyed talking about where each ingredient comes from that we're using when we're cooking together. So a lot of times they do get harvested in the garden, but sometimes we bring in other tools like olive oil or salt, and we can have interesting conversations about where those came from originally, who grew the ingredients involved, how many miles did they travel. And I've found that kids get really interested in those things and are really kind of hungry for those facts that are surprising to them. So it's an interesting tool for engagement for us. And we also find it useful to honor what they already know. So if some of the older kids are cooking at home, or if they have their own food traditions that they'd like to share about, or maybe, you know, they help whoever is cooking in the kitchen at their place, often they can share some tools that they use or strategies or favorite recipes. So those are all useful tools for engagement, we think. And then I think you saw in the video, Jessica was using kid-safe knives, which we find really useful. And then as they get older, we have some safety techniques for how they can use some of the more sharp adult tools. So there's some cutting techniques that we have. Some people call it the dino claw, when you're showing kids how to hold their fingers and keep them away from the blade. We also use peelers a lot, and we tend to cut out little notches. And for example, if a kid is peeling a carrot. So we have some examples of those in our free resources, and we'll show you those in a little bit too. But yeah, those are some of the tips for cooking with the older kids that we like to use. Thanks, Tara. So here are some of our free resources if you all are interested in diving a little bit deeper or you think they'll be useful for the questions that you have. So I saw that a lot of folks are interested in recipes. So you saw our kale chickpea spread with Jessica in the video, and also our herb lemonade. We have a whole cookbook for cooking with kids that's been developed over the past 10 years that City Blossoms has been doing garden programming. It's called Garden Gastronomy, and it's bilingual. And Tara mentioned the recipe cards, so she can mail those to you if you're interested. We also have them on our website, or at least a selection of them, so you can check those out. And then I think Jessica also mentioned our cooking boxes. Often when we cook with kids, we're either in a garden or in a classroom that doesn't have access to a full kitchen. And the strategy that we use to still be able to implement some fun cooking programming is we developed a box that we can tow really easily back and forth. So we put a lot of thought into which tools go in there, which pantry items we tend to keep on hand. So if that's useful for if folks are cooking in a garden, that's on our website. We have demo videos. You saw a still from one of the ones that Lola shared with us. And there are lots more of those on our YouTube channel. We have a lot of great partners who shared demo videos with us. They're chefs, they're educators, so you can check those out.
And then if you're interested in garden education in general, we also have some lessons plans, a library list, and virtual field trips. So all of those are available if they're useful to you all. All right, so we wanted to take some space. I think we have a little bit of time. If there are any burning questions that we'd like to discuss as a group while we're all here. I don't know if folks are more comfortable in the chat or if you want to unmute and ask a question, but I think we have some time for that. You can keep an eye on the chat box in case things come to anyone. Tara and Jessica, did you have any last notes while folks are thinking, or should we move to our next slide?
Yeah, I guess I can just reiterate that if people would like those recipe cards, to email me your mailing address and my email is tara@cityblossoms.org. But yeah, we really would love to hear if anyone has any questions or wants to share anything. That sounds like a bunch of you have been trying to think about cooking with kids at home. So if you've had any experiences you want to share with the group or particular questions. Okay, well, if everyone is good for tonight, we just wanted to offer our emails. If you want to follow up at a later time too, please do that for sure. And yeah, thank you for attending our webinar. We hope that there's some helpful things in it, and stay in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.